Good evening. I'd like to call to order the special meeting of the City Council of Tuesday, December 9th, 2025. I'm Julie Daigle, Ward 4 City Councilor and City Council President. Public participation to this meeting is provided in person and remotely via Zoom in accordance with Mass General Law. The Zoom link can be found on the city website. This meeting is also being televised and recorded by Peabody TV and by the City Council stenographer. Would the clerk please read the meeting notice?
Notice is hereby given that the City Council of the City of Peabody will conduct a public hearing on Tuesday evening, December 9th, 2025 at 6 p.m. in the Frank L. Wigan Auditorium, 24 Lowell Street, Peabody, Mass., and remotely via Zoom in accordance with Chapter 797 of the Acts of 1979 as amended of the Massachusetts General Laws in order to adopt the percentages of the local tax levy to be borne by each class of real and personal property for fiscal year 2026. For remote participation using the Zoom platform, please visit www.pbd-ma.gov under City Calendar on the homepage or contact the City Clerk's office. Peabody City Council, Councilor Julie K. Daigle, City Council President.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I do see we do have some public participants in the audience, so I just want to give them a heads up of how tonight's agenda will work. I am going to open it up and turn it to Councilor McGinn momentarily to go through some administrative protocols, and then turn it over to the mayor and his finance team to give a presentation. We will then open it up for public input in person and online, and then we'll turn it over to the City Council for deliberation and entertain any motions of what we have before us tonight. Councilor McGinn.
Thank you, Madam President. Move to receive item B. So moved.
You heard the motion. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote. Councilor McGinn.
Thank you, Madam President. On suspension of the rules, move to receive late communication 1. So moved.
You heard the motion. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, it's a vote. Councilor McGinn.
Thank you, Madam President. Move to receive late communication 2. So moved.
You heard the motion. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, any opposed, it's a vote. Councilor McGinn.
That's it, Madam President. No further motions.
Thank you, Councilor McGinn. Honorable Mayor, would you like to open up your presentation, please?
Thank you, Madam President. Good evening to you. Good evening, councilors. Hope everybody's doing well. I'm pleased to be here tonight to discuss the state of our city's finances and to propose our 2026 tax rate classification. Let me first express my gratitude to our hardworking finance team, Mike Gingras, Mary Martin, Sue Antonellis, Leslie George, and all their staff for their dedication and hard work in preparing tonight's presentation. Mike Gingras will provide you a more detailed overview shortly, but I wanted to share a few brief comments as to where we stand. You will recall that back in June during our budget presentation, we projected a $497 increase in the average residential tax bill. At that time, I proposed utilizing $2 million in free cash and setting the tax classification rate at 1.75, which is the highest tax classification rate and one we've had the last few years. As always, those projections were based on the best information we had at that time and included a 15% increase to our city's health insurance obligations, totaling approximately $5 million. This is by far the largest increase to health insurance costs in our city's history. As I said in June, health insurance costs represent a looming budgetary upheaval, not only to Peabody, but to cities and towns across Massachusetts and across America. I cannot be more clear and definitive with the statement, but these increases are simply unsustainable. A $5 million increase last year's budget is by itself a $200 plus almost $220 tax increase by itself before we look at anything else. And unfortunately, I'm here to tell you, based on meetings that we've had in the past couple weeks, that we are looking at a 15 to 20% health insurance increase coming up this year. We won't know the final number until probably February, but we've been told to expect a 15 to 20% increase. That is going to make things obviously very difficult for all of us. In addition, we face a 17% increase for retiree health insurance and a nearly 3% increase to our budget, to our pension obligations, which total nearly $14.3 million this fiscal year. Also, a $938,000 increase to our Essex Tech assessment. Once again, this year, these non-discretionary budget obligations are putting extreme pressure on our budget and an increased burden on our taxpayers. But the news is not all bleak. That's because in Peabody, our local economy continues to shine. While home values keep climbing, up another 5.8% this year, it's our commercial and industrial boom that's really stealing the spotlight this year, with an impressive 11.7% leap from last year. This is the first time in decades, that Peabody's commercial industrial growth has surpassed its residential growth. So while runaway cost increases continue to be a real hurdle for all of us, we have very encouraging economic news to help ease the burden just a bit. That's why I'm able to propose a slightly lower average residential tax increase of $415, down from the $497 we anticipated in June. But also very importantly, I'm proposing that we do not tap into our reserves this year. So we keep the $2 million available for our future needs. I mentioned in June taking $2 million from our reserves. I don't want to do that this year. Finally, I'm proposing an adjustment of the CIP rate from 1.75 down to 1.70. This shift gives us the added flexibility we will need to fine-tune the rate in the years ahead, especially as we brace for even more challenging budget cycles. While we're navigating historic cost increases and even tighter budget cycles, I'm cautiously optimistic that here in Peabody, we have what it takes to weather these challenges while still investing in our city's future. You and I continue to work together to improve our city and to make Peabody a more desirable place to live, work, start a business, and raise a family. Together, we have invested in education. Important projects completed this year were the Welch Elementary School, which I consider a brand new elementary school, even though it was a major renovation. That school is thriving and doing extremely well, and we did a terrific job with that project. And then we also completed the work at the Center School. Significant capital improvement at the Center School, which we believe will add another 10, 15, 20 years to the life cycle of that building. And most notably, our plans to build a new Peabody Veterans Memorial High School, which will be a game changer for our students and for education in our city for generations and generations to come. Together, we've invested in public safety, including nearly $70 million for Peabody's new police and public safety headquarters. This state-of-the-art complex will serve as the administrative headquarters for the Peabody Police Department, the Peabody Fire Department, and Emergency Management Services. It is on budget and on schedule to open next fall. In closing, I want to thank the City Council for being such outstanding partners. I want to stress this. Your thoughtful input in June during our budget meetings played a key role in shaping tonight's proposal. And I believe that together we're making the right investments for Peabody's future. Thank you all for your continued support and dedication to our city. I'm here certainly to answer any questions and offer any thoughts as we move along, but I wanted to turn it over with, Madam President, your approval to Mr. Gingras and Ms. Martin for their presentation.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Gingras, I see you approaching the podium. Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll begin with a recap of the closeout of fiscal 2025. The total revenues came in at $205,788,000, and that's an increase over what we budgeted. We budgeted revenue at $203,500,000. Most of the $2 million or so increase is attributed to a lot of strong work from our city treasurer, collecting back taxes, interest on those back taxes, and taking advantage of the rates that we've been favorable rates for investments and our investment interest. On the expense side, we spent $204,862,000. Our revenue exceeded expenses by almost $1 million, $926,000. We add that to our beginning fund balance of $11.6 million, and we reduced our tax rate last year by $1 million, which affects the fund balance. All total, we end up with a fund balance of $11.7 million at the close of June 30th, which is approximately what we began with. This next update, we take a look at our enterprise funds. The first column is a skating rink. We have probably the highest amount of revenue we've ever incurred at the skating rink, $891,000, against operating expenses of $850,000. So we had a gross profit there of $41,000. However, we still had debt service remaining payments of $75,000, so the net shortfall there was a little over $33,000. That adds to our beginning negative fund balance when we close out the year with a $273,000 negative fund balance for the rink. The golf course, on the other hand, we had revenue of $2.1 million, expenses of $1.5, a gross profit of $588,000, less short-term interest on the land purchase of $182,000. We end up on the golf course with 1.8, almost 1.9 million in fund balance of retained earnings. Combining the two is what makes up our recreation enterprise, and at the end of the day, we're at 1.6 million for the enterprise in total as retained earnings. In the water and sewer enterprise, our revenues this year are $20.8 million, $846,000. Slightly behind our expectation because we've had some billing issues with our software company. We're back up to speed on that. We've hired a consultant to help us out. And against expenses of $20,413,000, we had a gross profit of $433,000 from operations. Once we pay the debt service, we have a shortfall of approximately $1.3 million. We had a beginning retained earnings of $1 million. So the bottom line here is we had a deficit in retained earnings in our water and sewer fund, mostly because of the timing of the collection of receipts and not because of the current rate structure, although we will be coming to you probably in the spring to reevaluate what our water and sewer rates will be, given that there's additional debt service that will be coming on. This $258,491 you'll see further in the presentation and in amounts to be raised. This is our traditional update of free cash and our reserves, our stabilization fund. In July of 2024, we began with $9.4 million of certified free cash. We listed a number of uses here, $1 million to reduce the tax rate, police retro, snow and ice, amounts to cover payrolls. At the end of the day, we reduced free cash by 4.5, almost $4.6 million. And we had a remaining amount of 4.9 million in free cash. Once we closed out the books, due to some of the increases I talked about earlier in the additional tax collections, additional interest earnings, we were added back 4.9 million to free cash. Traditionally, it's around 2 million, 2.7 million. The total free cash certified by the Department of Revenue was $9 $6,881,000, and that's where we currently stand today. On the stabilization side, we began the year with $3.6 million. We had a vote during the year for a loan advance of $150,000. We're still working on our payback from the fire at the Coolidge Treatment Plant of $125,000. We earned interest of almost $150,000. At the June 30th, we had $3.8 million in stabilization. So combined with the certified free cash of $9.8 million and the $3.8 million in stabilization, at the close of the fiscal year, to begin right now, we're at $13.6 million in reserves. Further below on this chart, we see the anticipated kind of placeholders where we can anticipate some of the spending that will occur during FY26. I have $1.5 million for snow and ice, which is what it was last year. The year before that, it was around $600,000. So it could fluctuate down, it could fluctuate up to $2 million or more. Depends on the kind of winter we have. We've settled a bunch of contracts. We incorporated 2% salary increases within the budget, but some of the ones that we've settled so far are in the 3% range. So I've got a number there of approximately $1 million to cover that. And then for next year's budget, I have a placeholder of $1 million to help reduce the tax rate. The forecast, after those forecasted uses, we would still have approximately $10.3 million in reserves. Thank you. Property values by classification. The values increased by $812 million, or 6.8% overall. And the total for last fiscal year, the value was $12 billion, $8 million in value, and that's gone up to $12,820 million. That's an $812 million increase, which was much higher than last year, because our last year's increase was $623 million overall. So the property values continue to shine in terms of investment in our city and the value of our both residential and commercial properties. This next chart looks at the history of our values for the past few years. Over this period of time, since 2021, values have increased 46%. Residential values have increased 48.8%, commercial values 25%, industrial values 66.2%, and personal property values have increased 47.4%. All good news. This next slide takes a look at the residential values by different categories: single family, condominiums, 2 and 3 families. The single families were up 4.8%. The condominiums were up 4.3%. 2 and 3 families up 7.4%. Multifamilies were up 13.5%. You see vacant land has gone down by 17%. That's due to land being redistributed from vacant to a development. So it's reclassified to other categories. And then the other category is 9.6%. The residential values continue to be strong. Some of the sale prices for this year, single-family homes averaged $726,000, 2 families $756,000, 3 families almost $1,919,000. A lot of this is due to increasing rents, high occupancy. Everyone really finds Peabody an attractive place to find home. This next slide is our analysis of our commercial, industrial, and personal property. Commercial values have increased 10.1%, industrial 19.5%, and personal property 5.7%. As the mayor said earlier, the total increase here this year is 11.7%. I've been here since 1993. I've never seen it increase this much. Talking to the assessors, there's a number of factors for this. Hotels had high occupancy, high revenues. Same with warehouse and distribution, high rents, high occupancy, high demand. All these are combined to really boost the values of this commercial real estate this year. The average residential values have increased since 2022, 35.7%. This year's average value, including single families, condos, and 2 and 3 families, is $644,900. That's up $30,200 from last year. The average CIP value, the next slide, is increased dramatically, $225,400 from last year. And since 2022, that's a 32.2% increase in commercial, industrial, and personal property. New growth continues to be stable. New growth is new tax dollars that will be added to the tax rolls. We average approximately 1.1 million a year, and we continue to do so. This year, 55.8% is from the commercial, and 44.2% is from residential growth. That translates into 502,000 from new tax dollars from residential and $633,000 from commercial, for a total of 1.1 million in new tax dollars. And as you can see, the bottom line here, the average over the past 10 years is at 1.1. Been very consistent in hitting that target over the past decade. In this chart, we're going to take a look at the budget. The middle column is what we'll be focusing on. The budget this year, $200,955,000. The assessment for North Shore Tech, $6.9 million. State and county assessments of $5.9 million. I have abatements in here at $800,000. During budget time, I had that slightly less, but because of the increase, the large increases in commercial industrial, we anticipate there will be requests for abatements. So I had to increase that sum back to last year's level. And then you'll see here the other amount to be raised is that shortage in the water fund for this year, $258,491, for a total amount to be raised of $214,894,000. So how's this going to be funded? It'll be funded through property taxes, a levy of $142,158,000, local receipts of $23,605,000, state aid of $48.8 million, indirect costs funded by the enterprise fund of $69,893, and $65,000 from the parking meter fund and $180,000 from the cafeteria revolving to balance out the revenues against the expenses, for a total increase over last year of 5.5%. I'm going to point out that on this slide, last year we were funding the budget with ARPA of 1.1 million. We no longer have ARPA. We've reduced our reliance on the local reserves also, which is $1,600,000 less than last year. Those are the two significant changes there. This slide shows what our estimated receipts are, our projected local revenues for 2026. The last two columns, we have the actual for 2025 and our budgeted revenue amounts for 2026. For the most part, these are pretty much in mirror what the actuals were, but I'll point out on the interest and fees, that was reduced from $852,000 to $525,000 because we've collected a number of the larger tax liens, and I don't anticipate coming in with this high of interest on those taxes. Another area that's a little bit lower is license permits and fees. Although we've been stable over the last couple of years, I'm reluctant to take too much of a chance on that one, given the fact that in 2023 we were only at 2.4 million. I anticipate, based on what's in the pipeline, that we're going to have a real strong 2027 for permits and things. I think we've captured a number of the projects like the hotel over at the mall within the 2026 period. Another item that's been reduced is the interest income. I talked about earlier that we did well. The treasurer really did a great job with taking advantage of all the good interest rates and coming in at 1.3 million, but that's been bumped down to 650,000. And I think we'll be able to achieve that. The rates are going down. They can continue to go down through the course of the rest of the year. Pretty much all the other items remain the same. Obviously, we're not doing the ARPA revenue replacement like we had in the past, for a total of $23.6 million. One of the key issues the mayor's talked about is that our reliance on state aid has caused us to not really be able to rely on them, because over the past few years we've gone from 8 million to 4.5 million to 1.4 million. And this year it's $161,000 net increase in state aid. This slide shows the impact of tax classification at the proposed factor of 170%. On the left-hand side of the chart, the values before classification. If we didn't classify, the residential tax levy would be $117,647,000, and the CIP tax levy would be $24.5 million. With the shift of 170%, the residential tax levy becomes $100,490,000, a reduction of $17.1 million. The CIP levy increases by the same amount and moves from 24.5 to 41.6 million. The total levy would be $142,158,000. This represents shifting this savings to the residential taxpayer of $1,000, $1,045, and increasing the average tax bill for CIP of $15,956. Now that compares to last year of $14,932. So it's almost a $1,000 change for the commercial. In last year's, residents received a $990 break via the classification. This year, it's a $1,045,000 break. This slide shows the history of our tax rates. The recommended tax rate is $9.47 for residential, $18.85 for commercial industrial. You can see that over the years, the rates have been very stable. This increase in commercial values pushes down the commercial rate and causes the residential rate to increase slightly. The average tax bill to homeowners this year will increase, as the mayor said, $415.13, or 7.3%. Tax classification has mitigated the impact on residents over the past 5 years to the tune of 27.2%, while their values have gone up 35.7%. So the classification has reduced the cost to residents approximately 10% over that period of time. The average commercial, industrial, personal tax bill will increase $3,937. Again, this is one of the larger increases over the years due to the increase in value. We've gone from, if you look at the chart, 32,000 down to 31, then back up to 34. Now we're up to 30, almost 35, up to 38. In 2019, the average amount was $35,710. And in 2007, I looked way back, the average amount was $37,813. So we're in the range we had been years ago. This is a chart of the various strata where tax bills fall. 6.6% of residential tax bills will decrease. 25.7% will increase by $250 or less. And on the commercial side, despite this shift of values at the 170, there's 86 parcels that are going to have a decrease this year on the commercial side compared to only 3 last year. This chart looks at Essex County. It's 2025 data with the exception of Topsfield and Boxford. The Peabody is 5th from the bottom and will probably remain exactly in that spot, with Saugus the next highest up at $6,847 for a single family home. Even with the 2026 values and proposal for this year, the single family tax bill is anticipated for Peabody at $6,411. So we're going to stay in the same strata, among the lowest in Essex County. In addition to that, our excess levy capacity will be approximately $8,114,000 once we finish this year. And that's with the exception of Lawrence, the highest in Essex County. So in summary, our total assessed values were $12,820,957,000. Our allowed tax levy under Proposition 2.5 is $150,272,000. We're going to actually tax $142,158,000. That leaves us untaxed levy of $8,114,000. classification factor is recommended at 170%, which will give us more flexibility next year if we have to shift it back. Our residential tax rate will be $9.47 a thousand, and commercial tax rate will be $18.85.
Thank you, Mr. Gingras, for that presentation. I'm going to open this up for public comment from anyone in the audience that would like to speak. Please come to the podium and state your name and address for the record.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Deanne Healy, representing the Peabody Area Chamber of Commerce at 10 Centennial Drive. I just want to say I know how difficult this is every year. I know the challenges that are facing the city, and I appreciate the hard work that goes into contemplating what is being proposed tonight. But as a representative of the business community, I would like to just take an opportunity to remind the City Council that a split tax rate unfairly shifts the burden onto the commercial properties. And as we heard earlier, that this, in effect, subsidizes the residential rate by roughly $1,000 on average. And it's interesting that I only ever hear that amount talked about during this time of year. No other time do I ever hear anybody reminding the residents that they enjoy such a low tax rate because of the commercial property here. And I recognize that you guys are representing the residents and you want to keep their tax rate as low as possible. So, but I also want to remind you that property values, while they've gone up for commercial properties, which is certainly great news for people that own them, it's not the same as cash flow. Higher assessments may look like capacity, but they don't translate into dollars that a business can actually spend. And at a time when we're really trying to invest in revitalizing downtown and supporting small businesses, a higher commercial tax rate can actually undermine those efforts. It makes it harder to attract and retain businesses, which are essential to a thriving economy. In particular, I think the point that I want you all to hear and understand is that most small businesses here lease their space under a triple net agreement. So what that really means is any tax increase that you put on a commercial property that leases space to another business, that tax increase is not really absorbed by the property owner. It just gets passed down to that small business. So think about many of the small businesses here in town that are owned by neighbors, friends, residents, but a $200 to $300 monthly increase that they could potentially see, they have to then calculate how many more customers they need to generate in a month to just cover that cost. And it's unexpected for them. So, you know, I want that to be considered. I appreciate the fact that the CIP factor has been reduced from 175 to 170, but I would hate to see that also looked at as being increased and bumped up again in order to save the residents a few more dollars, because this impact does have an across-the-board increase on businesses. And not every, we've heard about the biggest increase was to some of the hotels or larger properties. That's only a handful of properties in Peabody. We need to consider all level of businesses. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Healy. Laura, would you like to come up and state your name and address for the record and your organization?
Laura Meisenhelter. I'm representing, actually, my landlord. I'm at North Shore Community Action Programs at 119 Rear Foster Street. But I was in a conversation with the landlord of the building, Fran and Rick Tower, and they wanted to share some thoughts. Recognizing in Fran's letter that I'm going to read to you, it's, you know, she knows that the rate has gone down 5 cents, but property values have gone up, and that's not money in their checking account. That's just an asset on their balance sheet. So Fran writes, "Good evening. I regret that I cannot attend tonight's meeting and have asked Laura Meisenhelter of NASCAP to present our comments regarding the proposed changes to the commercial tax rate. My husband Rick and I own RTW Realty, LLC at 119 Rear Foster Street, buildings 12 and 13 in Peabody. We purchased the former Rex Leather Building in 2004 with the support of Peabody Community Development, which at the time strongly encouraged new business investment in the city. Since then, we have worked tirelessly to maintain our property and support our tenants, particularly during the challenges of COVID-19, by restructuring agreements and keeping rents and triple net costs as reasonable as possible. In many years, we absorbed increases ourselves rather than pass them on. Our commitment has always been to foster long-term relationships and provide stability for the small businesses that call our building home. We are deeply concerned about another potential tax increase in 2026. In 2004, a significant unannounced hike forced us to raise costs for tenants, something we had long avoided. Taxes rose again in 2025, and another increase would place unsustainable strain on the small businesses already struggling in today's economy. Most of our tenants are longstanding small businesses, including NASCAP, that contribute directly to Peabody's vitality. Repeated tax hikes not only jeopardize their stability, but also undermine the city's stated goal of attracting and retaining businesses. We respectfully urge the city to reconsider further increases in commercial real estate taxes. Stability in tax rates is essential if Peabody is to remain a place where businesses can thrive and continue contributing to the community. Thank you for your time and consideration. Sincerely, Fran and Rick Tower.
Thank you, Ms. Meisenhelter. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak about this classification? Seeing none, is there anyone on the Zoom platform? Seeing none, I'm going to open up the floor to my fellow councilors. Councilor Gamache.
Thank you. I just have one question that kind of, and I don't know if it was touched on. Page 14, Mike. Can you explain the sizable decrease from veterans benefits from 25 to 26?
Basically, Steve has been moving people off of one type of a benefit that we get reimbursed for to a better benefit that they get paid directly. So he's shifted how he's doing operations.
So the benefit is still there, it's just a shift of the monies between the parties?
And I think it's a better benefit. I think they get more.
Yeah? Okay, I just was wondering, that even though it's $100,000, I just wanted to make sure that why it was like that. So you're just saying a shift in the payment schedule to the individuals directly versus the city's reimbursement? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Gamache. Councilor Peach.
Thank you, Madam President. Through you to the mayor or to Mr. Gingras. Mayor, you said in your presentation reducing the classification to 1.7 instead of 1.75. I forget exactly what you said, but something to the effect that it will prepare us better down the road as we see significant. I mean, we're anticipating, this year was a little bit of a surprise with the health insurance increase, but now we're a little bit more prepared, still not well equipped, to deal with that large increase that we see coming. Can you just explain, you made the comment, it stuck in my head, is this a way for us to maybe lessen the burden in future years, slowly increase taxes in order to pay for those big cost expenses that are coming down?
Thank you, Councilor. Yes, and a lot of what we put together for this presentation, a lot of it was based on, as I mentioned earlier, the discussions we had in May and June during the budget time. There were a lot of good points made about just looking ahead for the future, and I think we've always wanted stability as a community and be able to rely on certain numbers as we move forward. I think at this particular moment, though, we need to focus on not only consistency, but also now we need to have flexibility as a community. And I think keeping the $2 million in the reserves strengthens our reserves for the future, and then shifting the burden from 175 to 170, again, will provide us increased flexibility to try to handle this significant tax increase coming, or health insurance increase coming. If it's 20%, that's $3 million, or that's going to be $6.5 million just in health insurance increase. That's a $300 tax increase just from health insurance coming up. So I think we as a city need to have flexibility to be able to adapt depending on where things fall. That's why the good news that we received about the increases with the commercial and industrial revenue, or the increase in value, allowed us to make some decisions and provide some flexibility for us for the future. Our levy is going down because of Proposition 2.5. We don't have quite the levy that we're going to have in years to come that we have had recently. So I think we need that increased flexibility with the CIP factor, that depending on how things go, we can make adjustments there. And also with the reserves, it provides us a little bit more, again, stability, but with flexibility. So it's hard to say where things are going to fall. We won't know in terms of health insurance until February, March, but the reports I'm getting are very bleak, and I think this provides us more flexibility to handle some of the challenges ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through the chair to Mr. Gingras, the excess levy capacity, this is the lowest that we've seen in, I don't know, since I've been on the council, but I think in a long time. It's always been able to help us in our financials when we go out for loans. Do you foresee, like, with the new growth, that that's going to increase in the coming years, or are we just going to look at that continue to decrease as we move forward?
Based on the size of the budgets that we've had over the past few years, and the lack of additional funding from the state, we've had to make up that gap with tax dollars from the tax levy. And at some point within the next 2 or 3 years, that is going to go away. So part of what the mayor was talking about is we pulled back on the CIP factor, and it gives us a little bit of leeway if next year the residential rates or the values increase significantly again. We could go up a little bit and shift a little bit more, but we pulled back to almost the same levels as what we had last year in terms of the tax burden on commercial. And then when I said I looked back into 2007, and the average tax bill then was $37,000 versus $38,000. So.
Thank you, and through the chair to Mr. Jenkins again, do you, it's not in our presentation, but do you happen to know, is it a significant difference, or what the difference would be if it was, 171 or 172, or how, like, what those shifts are in terms of like a residential tax rate? Is it minimal, because there's obviously so many more residents than there are businesses?
There's going to be a change of $20, $30 either way.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gingras. Thank you, Councilor Peach. Councilor Manning Martin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. With respect to health insurance, I know that we are self-insured with respect to IAs, workers' comp, and long-term disability. And That's all we're self-insured for, is that correct, Mr. Chambers? So I'm wondering how much of that cost is captured in the 15% increase? Is it a significant amount? Because I know we have a good number of people out on workers' comp, so that we're self-insuring for that. So that means we're at 100%, we cover that, correct?
Yeah, we covered that, and it's not really part of what the mayor's talking about. It's separate.
Okay, but so where would that be in the budget then? Because that's a significant
There's
number
a
to me
workers,
anyway.
there's a workers' comp line in the budget for like 300,000.
Okay, and so I guess to you or to Mary, is it something that, why do we self-insure that? Is that just something we've always done? Have we ever looked to go out fully insured? Whereas that's more predictable and you can budget for it. It's more cost-effective, I would think. And when you're self-insured, certainly in that area for workers' comp and injuries, you take on a greater risk to cover the entire cost. So I'm wondering, have we ever explored that? And are we self-insured because that's what we've always done and have never looked to get fully insured? Do you know?
A couple of different things. We've always done it for one, but the other thing is we're on a pay-as-you-go basis. So instead of paying a premium, regardless of who's out or who's not out, we can derive savings if we have good years, because we're only paying for the actual people that are out and not just paying a company for a premium. So I think over time we've probably saved money, but I've never done a comparison on that, and I haven't really looked into workers' comp, straight workers' comp insurance, because cities and towns have the ability, and outside businesses don't, to self-insure for that and to pay as you go. And there are times when we have very few people out on workers' comp, whereas a city this size with 3,000 employees, that I assume that the workers' comp policy would be significant to pay the premium.
Okay, I just think that would be something that would be interesting to look back on in all your spare time. If that's something that you could put together, I think it would be interesting for us to learn that, to see if taking on the risk is worth the risk. As you present it, yes, but if we could look at the data, I think that would be helpful. So thank you for that. If I could move on to a couple, the issue of, Dan Healy brought it up, and I guess both that spoke mentioned the triple net, which is a cost incurred, certainly. And it reminds me of a couple of rented properties that the city is using that incurs the triple net as well. So I'm wondering, this would probably be through you, Madam Chair, probably to the mayor, regarding the school administration building. I know we entered into maybe back in 2017 to enter into a 5-year lease that had options to extend it twice for 2 years, and I think up to year 8 or 9, it would go from anywhere from like 72,000 in rent to year 9 was like 92,000. So I'm wondering, Mayor, we must be entering near our final lease agreement and options with respect to the school administration building. And since we pay the triple net, which has already been explained, that we pay rent and the taxes on that agreement, I'm wondering, what is the plan? Are we in year 8 or 9, and what is the plan? Because that is a significant cost that we've entered into over the last 8 or 9 years. So I'm wondering what the plan is with the conclusion of that agreement and those lease options.
So moving forward, we're on a year-to-year. I didn't want to tie the city up long-term in any additional contractual term. So we've reached an agreement with the landlord that we just move forward year to year. And it doesn't bind us going forward beyond 1 year at a time. And I think, again, that's important for our flexibility. If the hope is, which I think we may have some options coming up, to relocate, I want to make sure that the city at that time has the flexibility in order to do that on a year or less notice. So it's on a year. We're not bound by any term more than 1 year, and I think that's important for our flexibility purposes.
Yes, thank you. So are we in year 9? Because that would be the end of the I think, the original agreement that came before the council way back in 2017. So you going year to year, does that need to come back to the council because it's outside of the original, I think, lease agreement?
I'll check with legal on that. I didn't think I did if it's just year to year, just moving forward, but I can check on that.
Thank you. And what is the current amount of rent that we're paying? Is it 92? Do you know?
I don't know. I can get that to you certainly for the next meeting, but it's in and around there.
Okay, and then taxes on that is probably, I don't know, maybe 11, almost 12,000 maybe? Maybe, Mr. Gingrich? No? Okay, we don't know. Okay, so it's at over $100,000 a year expenditure right now. So I would like to see that we would look at relocating that as soon as possible, given the financial straits that we're in. I think that's an expenditure that's been going on for some time, and I think it is due time that we relocate to areas, buildings in the city where we may have space. So those are my thoughts on that. Next is the Children's Museum. I know that we entered into a 5-year lease, again, another triple net agreement over here with the old TD Bank. And I think that was in 2022 that came before the council, and a caveat motion made with that was that in year 3, the Children's Museum would come before us with a presentation on a cost analysis and the status of their finances, and also moving towards their independence, becoming a 501c3. So I believe we are at year 3 for that presentation to come forward, if we could have that.
We're ready anytime. I know we discuss this every spring, and we did give some information during the spring during budget time, but anytime, Councilor.
Thank you. So if we're heading into budget season, I'd like to make a motion that that presentation be made to the council in February as we're heading into budget season. So moved.
You heard the motion for a presentation on an update from the review of the Children's Museum for February of 2026. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote. Councilor Manning Martin.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor Manning Martin. Councilor Turco.
Thank you, Madam President. I've been kind of searching for the right way to say this so I don't make the headlines in the paper. I still can't find it, but Mayor, I want to say thank you for looking at this budget. You're exactly right. It was the first thing I thought when I looked at it. You listened to what we said. We didn't want the free cash used. Somehow you got that done without using $2 million in free cash. That's huge for me, and I know Councilor Peach and I have talked about it. To have that money in the bank. The CIP factor concerned me a little bit, but I think you said $30, Mike, roughly. Would that be if we went up to 175? What would the savings be to the residents if we stayed at the 175? $60. So I mean, that's what I was weighing back and forth, Mayor, is that with using the $2 million, I think you've used a number of $43 per million, 46 in that ball. Let's say $40 per million. That's 80 and another 60. We could have actually reduced this tax bill down to, significantly, but this is what we've been asking for as a council, is to put this money and keep it in reserves. So that was what I was trying to weigh out from the beginning. So ultimately, I think you're 100% right. We're prepared better for down the road with keeping that $2 million there, with having the 5% on the CIP to utilize if need be, with the high school coming online, with decrease in residential values coming. So I appreciate that. I was also, and again, this is where I was not looking to make headlines. I appreciate the fact that we're not at 497 and we're at 415. That was the number that was out there in June. So to see that reduction along with everything else that was done with this budget, I think you guys did pretty well. So thank you to the finance team and Mayor. And that was another thing. I think we all go back and listen to the previous 2 or 3 meetings so we can kind of see what we discussed in years past. And I remember Council Welton brought up possibly finding a way to reduce the CIP. So you listened. I know that other councils brought up the $2 million, in reserves, having concerns about that. So everything we talked about, you listened to. So I appreciate that. If you don't mind, I'm going to switch gears a little bit to page 3 with the water and sewer. This is where I have a pretty significant issue. You brought up, Mike, that there's a billing software issue. I agree, but this isn't anything that we were unaware of. I'm curious how you've come up with these numbers, because I don't believe them to be true and accurate. For instance, my most recent water bill that I got 10 days ago, the read date was June 1st of 2025. So you haven't even read my bill for 29 days in 2025, yet there's a closeout for 2025. And I know through conversations with Councilman McGinn, you possibly just use a rolling period. But it creates an inaccuracy in the actual billing for on the behalf of the residents that are trying to figure out when they used what water and what they're being billed for now. Again, my last reading was June 1st. That's 6 months ago. I have no idea what 6 months ago, why my water bill would be at any specific amount. Whereas if my gas bill is extremely high, I could look back 30 days ago and say, oh, well, we were home for 2 weeks on vacation, so the heat was, was higher that month. As far as, how do you bill? I mean, how do you come up with these numbers? Is it a rolling 12-month period and it's not really 2025?
I totally agree with you in terms of we have had trouble with readings, we've had trouble with billing. We normally bill by quarter, by ward. So, January, February, March, those readings get billed, then the next quarter, then the next, and so on. With this issues that we had with the Munis water software, a lot of that got scrambled, and we had to do estimates just to generate enough income to keep us afloat. We're working diligently to get back on track, to get back to the normal billing cycles, which would then do, as you just said, you could look at your bill and say, well, I was away for that month, and that's why. It's up or down.
So, again, and that leads to my next issue is, with 6 months of water not being billed as of yet, that's 6 months of interest that's just, sitting out there. We calculate interest as far as the enterprise goes. That's 6 months of interest that the city's not receiving on, millions of dollars in water that's sitting out there. So this isn't, it seems like you're on the kind of on the precipice of maybe solving this, but again, this has been long-term. This is, I believe, even before the new billing software went in, that we were having issues with billing. But more recently, I've received residents, you're probably aware of some of them possibly, but one resident got an $8,000 bill that was a mistake, in Ward 1 2 weeks ago. Another resident got a bill for $27, with a family of 5. There's a problem, and we're all aware there's a problem. And, when we turn around and we have to budget for $259,000, which is more than the council was able to cut last year from the budget in June, it actually overtook anything that we cut, was the $258,000 that we're now responsible for paying out of the budget. So something needs to be done about that sooner than later. And I think it's beyond just looking at a software glitch or whatever it is. Are we bound by an audit on that Water Enterprise Fund?
It's part of the overall city audit every year. It's included. But, yeah, we're working, Janice and her team diligently and with an outside consultant to get everything in order and to get everything back on time and to resolve these issues with billing because of the requirement for the revenue, but also, for the customers themselves to be able to have a consistent bill that they can count on and budget for themselves.
Thanks, Mike. And, that's the last thing I'll say about it. It's just very difficult. You mentioned coming before us in the future months for an increase in the water bills. It's very hard for me to say, yes, let's increase it when we know we're not billing properly. And so we don't have a true and accurate number of where we need to be in water billing. So hopefully by then that this is rectified, and at no point should 6 months of water bills not be billed to customers. Even if we had to go back to, hand reading, until this software glitch. Actually, I do have one more question regarding that. Where are we with we were supposed to replace these water meters like years ago. Didn't we approve $1 million several years back to replace all the water meters?
We've started a little bit of a replacement program, but one of the key factors is to get the billing and reading software in place before we purchase the meters, because they're going to read electronically into that system. So we have to make sure that system works before we get into the more sophisticated meters.
Thank you. All right, that's enough water talk for now. On page 4, I'm just going on order here, you have miscellaneous projects, overages, and retro as a possible expenditure for the 2027 fiscal year. What miscellaneous projects, what's inclusive in overages, retro, and miscellaneous projects?
It's just a placeholder in a label that I put on there. Traditionally, we're going to use X certain amount of money to, something comes up. In fact, today there was a talk of possibly doing a grant match for some dam work, which was $150,000. So items like that may come up.
And also, Councilor, just that also is a placeholder for, depending on union negotiations, having some flexibility there for how these negotiations, because we've settled a number of contracts, but we still have several more to go. So that's kind of a placeholder we put to account for that, a little overtime, things like that.
Thank you, Mayor. And Mike, we had already put aside some money for that in the budget.
Yeah, there was 2% put into the budget. We're going to probably be approximately 1% or 2% short, depending on the overtimes.
Okay. I'm just moving forward to page 12, the comparison of budget data fiscal 25-26. If you go down to property taxes for fiscal 26, you have $142,000,001. The original number proposed to us in the June budget was $140,546,000, so about a $1.5 million difference. Does that now come off the excess tax levy? So at budget time, we were talking about a possible $10 million excess tax levy, and now it would be roughly $8.5 million?
Right.
Okay, so okay. Ultimately, to go back to Councilor Peach's question regarding excess tax levy, there's really no way to not use the $4 to $5 million per year that we've been using. And you mentioned maybe possibly 3 years, but if we have $8 million in excess tax levy left, we're looking at two fiscal years before that's completely gone.
If the level of state aid continues, because we've had a dip into that, to that $4.5 million number. But if it's only $3 million, then it extends the life of that balance.
And if I could just add to that, Counselor, if it's okay. You know, I have spoken, I didn't get into it too much with my remarks earlier, or I didn't at all, but I knew Mr. Jingis would bring it up. But the fact of the matter is, 3-4 years ago, we were getting $8 million in additional state aid, net increase over the year before. And again, if you see the numbers, they're tracking significantly down every year. And so much so that last year was a $161,000 net increase over the year before. And I did want to point out, I know a number of people are pay close attention to the MMA, the Mass Municipal Association. They just did a report very recently that state support in real dollars has not kept up with municipal needs. So Peabody's certainly not alone. We're one of 351 cities and towns, but it is affecting everybody. The state aid is just not meeting the needs of cities and towns. And from the city of Peabody to go from $8 million 3-4 years ago down to $161,000 net increase over the year before, when we have a health insurance increase of $5 to $6 million, and we're getting $161,000 net increase over the year before, how are cities and towns supposed to operate? And that's why our levy capacity has gone down the last few years, because we're not getting the state aid net increase that we have gotten in years past. And, you know, the MMA, it's something that we all talk about at our meetings. It's one of the central points of our discussion is that, and the MMA did a pretty detailed report and spells out very clearly that the money in real dollars that cities and towns are getting from state aid is just not meeting the needs that we have. And it is certainly very troubling. But that, I think, is the direct result. That tracking down in net increase, and again, it's not a cut, it's net increase year to year, but that is directly relevant to the levy capacity going down.
Thank you, Mayor. I agree with you. I mean, I do think that the lack of state aid coming in has been atrocious. So hopefully that our delegation can rectify that in the years to come. Mike,
And I'm sorry, Councilor, if I could just one more second. I'm sorry to interrupt. If I could just add one more thought to that. Just to give another perspective on this. Our Chapter 90 paving funds, and this is something all of us deal with because we're all getting calls about conditions of roads. And we get $1.2 million from the state. We have gotten the same number since I've been mayor, so 14 years, and I'm pretty sure it was the same number before that. $1.2 million we get every year. The cost of paving has dramatically increased. I should try to get a number to it to give a better perspective, but the costs have way increased in terms of what we get paid, charged every year. So what that leads to is if we're getting the same amount we got 20 years ago, 15, 20 years ago, we're not able to do the same amount of roads that were done 15, 20 years ago. It just stands to reason. So again, that's just another example of the state aid, state assistance is just not meeting municipal needs. That's a perfect example because all of us get hit with that every year. You know, we need more roads. We do the best we can, but it's we're going to get 1.2 million again this year. You know, and that's it's just less and less we can do every year because the costs go up every year. But we're not getting the additional assistance that we need. Sorry, Council, I cut you off, but I thought that was a good example to show how the state assistance is just not meeting our needs.
Thank you, Mayor. Madam President, next time if you could gavel him, that would be great. So, Mike, I missed one question, and this is my last question. If we can go back to page 12, very minuscule, but just another thing. On the total sources of revenue, You have cafeteria revolving at 180,000. So I have a couple questions on that, I guess. One is, when we did budget, you were at 185,000, so you decided to use 5,000 less. Like, why? Just, what was the harm in just keeping the $5,000 in there? I guess,
I just rounded it down, I guess.
Okay. And I guess, do you know offhand, I think it's somewhere in one of these documents, that what that account is at? 'Cause I thought it was still pretty substantial. I knew it was somewhere in here.
It's 1.4 million.
All right, so that behooves the question, so we seem to be kind of going into that. I think this is the second, maybe third year in a row we've gone into that fund. What's the actual purpose of the school revolving? Initially, we put $1 million in because we thought we were going to owe some money for free lunch, or to balance out the free lunch program, which we never wound up owing, if I remember correctly. So that money was just left in there. Why are we not just taking that money back out of school revolving? Am I wrong? Is lunch is free now for everybody? Is that correct?
As far as I know. They're reimbursements from the federal government that drives that.
Right, so with that said, rather than nickel and dime it at 180,000, 200,000 every year, why is that not just kept in free cash and just?
Well, it's a separate fund that's controlled by the school department. And what we're doing is we're charging a custodian at the high school with benefits and a custodian at the middle school with benefits out of our facilities budget, against using part of that fund to cover their costs. But as far as all the other money that's in that fund, it's for equipment replacement and operations of the school lunch program.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Turco. You're all set with your questions?
I am, Madam President, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other councilors? Before I turn it back to Councilor McGinn, I just want to thank people that came out tonight from the business community and the residents to pay attention to this, and whoever's following at home. I'm glad that people are watching, and we appreciate that. It's important for everyone. Councilor McGinn.
Thank you, Madam President. Wanted to also thank the finance team for a great job with the presentation, and Mr. Mayor for your leadership on this. A couple of questions that I have. I think Councilor Turco did a fine job running through the issues with the water and sewer. Just one additional point on that, Mr. Gingras. The $258,000 that we're now going to have to make up from the general fund to pay off the deficit for the enterprise. We had that situation, I think it was two fiscal 23, right? So we had to pay it in fiscal 24. And there was some thought that we were going to be able to pay that back. And you, at that time, looked at the rules, and if it was for operating expenses, that was not permissible. So I believe that's the same circumstance here, correct? You're nodding to the affirmative. So just for future reference, councilors, that's gone. We're not going to be able to get it back from the enterprise. Mr. Gingras, on slide 4, where you did this rundown on the reserves, you had highlighted in your comments the nearly $5 million adjustment, and you compared that to a historical number that was more in the $2.5 million range, and you mentioned the work done by the treasurer, Mr. Teitelbaum. First off, I'd like to also thank the treasurer for your hard work on that. That is a impressive amount of incremental revenue for the city, kind of unprecedented as far as I can remember, as well as what you've done in terms of tapping into the favorable interest rate environment. I guess where I'm going with this, though, Mr. Gingras, is that a cautionary note to the future is that these are not something that we can expect to repeat. Is that correct? Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, we collect, or Ross collected a lot of the larger, long-standing back taxes. Now we have smaller amounts that won't total as much money. So, yeah, it's sort of a one-time thing that we're not going to see repeated to that extent. And part of the reasoning behind trying not to use the reserves and free cash.
Thank you. Just again, another note to councilors looking forward. Probably not going to realize that type of performance there again anytime soon. Mr. Jingras, the gap that we've highlighted here a few times between the increase in residential versus the increase in CIP values. When we looked at that in June, you were looking at CIP with, you gave us a range of values, and you looked at the gap kind of across that range, but it was a very conservative number. I think it was 1%, right? And for CIP value increase, and we ended up in excess of 11%. So that we are the shift there from what we anticipated in June versus what we are seeing here in this presentation. Can you dollarize that for us?
The amount of tax levy that we propose from CIP versus budget versus now is approximately $2 million.
So again, it's a rare circumstance, and I think, Mary, you had kind of indicated you hadn't seen that in that kind of delta ever. So it's a very favorable situation for us. It's allowed an additional just slightly over $2 million versus what we would have anticipated or what we did project actually at budget time. So again, another situation where we're not necessarily going to be able to count on that in future periods. A number of questions here, Ms. Gingras, but fortunately my colleagues have asked many of them. If we could talk just for a moment about the excess levy capacity decrease. You've taken a number of questions on this already, and I think between yourself and the mayor, done a good job explaining why that circumstance has kind of presented itself and why we've now seen that deterioration over the last three fiscal years. Mary, you mentioned the high school. We're going to have some significant additional debt service coming, and without being able to tap into that excess levy capacity, can you just kind of give us a preview of what this looks like under Prop 2.5? I think it would require some type of a debt exclusion, I think, if we reach that point, but if you could add, kind of give a little preview to the council on that, I'd appreciate it.
Sure. So the way I see it is that the existing debt service and the debt service that's going to be coming on board for the public safety facility will be incorporated in the city budget within the Proposition 2.5, in the high school project with the multi-million-dollar debt service, probably in the range of $10 million a year, would have to come through a debt exclusion, which would mean that the city would be allowed to raise those funds outside of the constraints of Proposition 2.5.
And I'm sorry, how many years out do you see that coming? How far out would that decision be? 2 to 3 years?
Probably within 2 years, a year, yeah. When we go to the full bore into the high school project and we start getting the once the architects come up with a design and a cost, at that point in time is when we would have to go for the debt exclusion, because we would have a number to base it on.
Thank you. I just want to go back for a second to comments you made about the CIP. We had some folks from the chamber here tonight, made some good points, but I think you also made some good points about where we are, where those bills are, those average bills are relative to where they were several years ago. So information that's not captured on slide 18. And I think you went back to maybe fiscal 17, was it, that you mentioned specifically? But, as a pointer, you were giving kind of whole number comparisons, and you give us this listing on slide 15 at the bottom of the slide. I think you kind of skipped over it maybe tonight in your presentation, where you show from fiscal 22 to 26, the percent of the levy that shifted to CIP, where that's starts in 22 at 13.44, and it's currently down to 12.07. I recall when before we maxed out at 175, that we were always hovering, we were targeting actually 15%. Does that ring a bell with you, Mr. Ingres?
I'm remembering 14s, stuff in
14,
the 14s.
14, 15, yeah. So, depending on whose memory is more accurate, we'll go with yours. Actually the shift to CIP over time has been smaller by a few percentage points. Would you agree with that?
That's correct, and we were doing the maximum shift. Now, today, we're not doing the maximum shift, and we're still right in that 12% range that we have been in the past 5 years, 4 years.
Right. Thank you. Tonight, we're also going to act on the Chapter 126 optional real estate exemptions. So we're now at the maximum. Your memo stated that, Mr. Mayor, but that was after 4 straight years of increasing those 10% per year to get to that maximum. If we could get the assessor, Ms. Antonellis, if you could just, I'd like you to comment on just for people that might be watching this hearing, again, what those exemptions are, and also if you could just give them a sense of what the deadlines are to file for them to increase the awareness. I know you've tried to get the information out there about these things, but this is just another opportunity to let residents know what they might be eligible for.
Sure. So the exemptions are discounts for certain residents that qualify, that own property and qualify for various reasons. Disabled veterans with a service-connected disability, seniors with limited income and limited assets, legally blind residents. There's options of deferring property taxes as well. The deadline for filing for exemptions is April 1st each and every year. So it'll be April 1st, 2026. The information and the applications are on the city website, on the assessor's page. If anybody has any questions, we'd be happy to answer them.
Great, thank you very much. And while you're up there, there was one change from budget time on the, and I think Mr. Ginger said it was on your recommendation that we increased from, I think, at budget time, 650 up to $800,000 for abatements. And again, that was on your recommendation, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And
That's
just
the
a little
overlay.
rundown on the rationale for that.
Yeah, just with the increase in the values, I anticipate that there'll be more filings for abatements.
Thank
And
you very much.
that amount funds both the exemptions and the abatements that are filed.
Good point. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
With that, I find overall that this presentation is very sound, and that's certainly my intention to support it. Madam President, at this time, I'd move to close the public hearing.
You heard the motion to close the public hearing. All in favor? Any opposed? It's a vote. Counselor, before we entertain some motions, I am going to have a 2-minute recess and return for your motions.
Very good.
Thank you, everyone. I'd like to reconvene the special meeting and turn it over to Councilor McGinn. Councilor McGinn.
Thank you, Madam President. This first item relates to item C in your package. Move to adopt Chapter 126 of the Acts of 1988, optional additional real estate exemptions for 2026, which are at the maximum allowable under Chapter 126 as specified in the communication from His Honor the Mayor dated November 21st, 2025. So moved.
You heard the motion. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Councilors Turco,
Yes.
Peach.
Yes.
Gould. Yes. Gamache.
Yes.
Higgins.
Yes.
Manning Martin.
Yes.
Welton.
Yes.
McGinn.
Yes.
Rossignol.
Yes.
Melville.
Yes.
Daigle.
Yes,
Motion carries 11-0.
thank you. Councilor McGinn.
Thank you, Madam President. This motion relates to item D in your package. Move to approve the following transfers to offset the fiscal 2026 tax rate. Transfer from facility fees, account number 240-000034634, in an amount of $100,000. Cable fees, account number 270-000033017, in an amount of $150,000. Utilities revolving, account number 260-000035615, in an amount of $150,000. Parking meter, account number 270-000033001, in an amount of $65,000. School lunch revolving, account number 241-000035606, in an amount of $180,000. And museum fees, account number 260-000035502, in an amount of $300,000, totaling $945,000 to fiscal year 2026 budget sources, account number 100-000039201, in an amount of $945,000. So moved.
You heard the motion. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Councilors Turco,
Yes.
Peach.
Yes.
Gould.
Yes.
Gamache.
Yes.
Higgins.
Yes.
Manning Martin.
Yes.
Welton.
Yes.
McGinn.
Yes.
Rossignol.
Yes.
Melville.
Yes.
Daigle.
Yes,
Motion carries 11-0.
thank you. Councilor McGinn.
Thank you, Madam President. For item E in the package, could we have Mr. Gingras please comment on that?
Counselor, which item?
Item E,
I don't have the letters, what's the topic?
it's the annual CPC transfers.
Okay, yeah, okay, got it. So annually, we do set-asides based on the community preservation law, and community preservation committees voted to set aside funds for historic preservation, community housing, and open space. The first transfer request is to transfer $554,161 to historic preservation, $184,720, community housing, $184,720.58, and open space, $184,720.58. And then the second set aside's 10%, $277,080.86 to the three funding accounts: open space at $184,720, historic preservation reserve for $46,180.14, and community housing reserve for $46,180.14.
Thank you, Mr. Gingras. Move to approve transfer request, account number 270-000033011, Community Preservation Funds unreserved, an amount of $554,161.74 to Historic Preservation Reserve Fund, account number 270-000033022, in an amount of $184,720.58, and Community Housing Reserve Fund, account number 270-000033-023, in an amount of $184,720.58, and Open Space Reserve Fund, account number 270-000033-021, in an amount of $184,720.58, and also to transfer from Community Preservation Fund unreserved, account number 270-000033-011, in an amount of $277,080.86, to Open Space Reserve Fund, account number 270-000033-021, in an amount of $184,720.58, and Historic Preservation Reserve Fund, account number 270-000033-022, in an amount of $46,180.14, and Community Housing Reserve Fund, account number 270-000033-023, in an amount of $46,180.14. So moved, Madam President.
Thank you, Council McGinn. You heard the motion. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Councilors Turco,
Yes.
Peach.
Yes.
Gould.
Yes.
Gamache.
Yes.
Higgins.
Yes.
Manning Martin.
Yes.
Welton.
Yes.
McGinn.
Yes.
Rozignol.
Yes.
Melville.
Yes.
Daigle.
Yes.
Motion carries 11-0.
Thank you. Back to Council McGinn.
Thank you, Madam President. If we could ask Mr. Gingras to please comment on item F. That's the administrative transfer. Mr. Gingras.
Thank you. This is an annual transfer to fund the administrative costs for the Community Preservation Committee for $10,000.
Thank you, Mr. Gingras. Move to approve transfer request, Community Preservation Act unreserved fund balance, account number 270-000033-011, an amount of $10,000, to Community Preservation Act administrative, account number 270-000033-024, and an amount of $10,000. So moved.
You heard the motion. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Councilors Turco,
Yes.
Peach.
Yes.
Gould.
Yes.
Gamache.
Yes.
Higgins.
Yes.
Manning Martin.
Yes.
Welton.
Yes.
McGinn.
Yes.
Rozignol.
Yes.
Melville.
Yes.
Daigle.
Yes.
Motion carries 11-0.
Thank you. Council McGinn.
Thank you, Madam President. If you could ask Mr. Gingras to please comment on item G.
Thank you. A request from the Community Preservation Committee to transfer from community housing to Emerald Development Housing, $200,000 for a loan and help with the development of a $63.9 million project for 116 affordable rental units.
Did you want to say something, Mr. Mayor?
I certainly can give more detail to that. That is for the property on Farm Avenue, the former, it was a Friendly 40B site at Farm Avenue. I believe it's 116 units. It's potentially for sale. Emerald Development would be the purchaser. In order to move forward with their filings with the Massachusetts Department of Housing and Livable Communities, they need to show support and also that they have the funding in place. So that's what this loan is for. This is part of their application process, and I expect there to be some time before a decision is made. But this is supporting that and seeing if that project moves forward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Move to approve transfer request CPC Community Housing, account number 270-000-33023, in an amount of $200,000, to CPC Emerald Development Housing, account number 270-1811-5856-4, 2026-000309, in an amount of $200,000. These funds will come from the Community Housing Fund 270-0000-33023 and will be given as a 0% interest deferred payment 30-year loan, which will be secured by a secondary mortgage on the property. So moved.
On the motion, Counselor Turco, please.
Thank you. I'm not sure it's really relevant to the motion. I just wanted to make a point that bottom of that page, Mike, you have balance for the balance for historic preservation, which is obviously a different fund. I just want to make sure we're using the right account numbers. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from the counselors? On the motion, roll call vote, please.
Councilors Turco,
Yes.
Peach.
Yes.
Gould.
Yes.
Gamache.
Yes.
Higgins.
Yes.
Manning Martin.
Yes.
Welton.
Yes.
McGinn.
Yes.
Rozignol.
Yes.
Melville.
Yes.
Daigle.
Yes,
Motion carries 11 to 0.
thank you. Counselor McGinn.
Thank you, Madam President. If we could ask Mr. Gingras to please comment on item H.
Another community preservation transfer request from community housing to NASCAP housing. This is a loan for $80,000 that will enable NASCAP to continue to provide rental assistance while they await reimbursement from other agencies.
Thank you, Mr. Gingras. Move to approve transfer request, CPC Community Housing, account number 270-0000033-023, an amount of $80,000, to CPC NASCAP Housing, account number 270-1811-58564-2026-000349, an amount of $80,000. These funds will come from the Community Housing Fund 270-0000033-023 and will be given a 0% interest deferred payment loan to allow NASCAP to access funds as a bridge loan until reimbursement payments are received from other funders, which will allow them to continue to provide TBRA assistance to the city's least wealthy households. This loan will be secured with a contract and is required to be repaid in 3 years. So moved.
On the motion, any discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Councilors Turco,
Yes.
Peach.
Yes.
Gould.
Yes.
Gamache.
Yes.
Higgins.
Yes.
Manning Martin.
Yes.
Welton.
Yes.
McGinn.
Yes.
Rozignol.
Yes.
Melville.
Yes.
Daigle.
Yes,
Motion carries 11 to 0.
thank you. Counselor McGinn.
Thank you, Madam President. If you could ask Mr. Gingras to comment on item I.
Yeah, this is a request to fund some of the previous votes to move $50,000 from the unreserved fund balance for CPC to community housing.
Thank you, Mr. Gingras. Just backing up to H for a moment, I think you had the same issue there as with the prior one that Councilor Turco pointed out. You see that? Move to approve transfer request, CPC, unreserved fund balance, account number 270-0000033-011, an amount of $50,000 to CPC Community Housing, account number 270-0000033-023, an amount of $50,000. So moved.
You heard the motion. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote.
Councilors Turco,
Yes.
Peach.
Yes.
Gould.
Yes.
Gamache.
Yes.
Higgins.
Yes.
Manning Martin.
Yes.
Welton.
Yes.
McGinn.
Yes.
Rozignol.
Yes.
Melville.
Yes.
Daigle.
Yes,
Motion carries 11 to 0.
thank you. Counselor McGinn.
Thank you, Madam President. If we could ask Mr. Gingras to please comment on item J.
Thank you. This is a quarterly payment we received from Comcast, and to move $187,000 into our cable fund expense in order to pay Peabody Access Television for Q3.
Thank you, Mr. Gingras. Move to approve transfer request, Receipts Reserve Cable Fund, account number 270-0000333017, an amount of $187,544.16. To Cable Fund Expense, account number 270-0000530007, in an amount of $187,544.16. So moved.
You heard the motion, councilors. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Councilors Turco,
Yes.
Peach.
Yes.
Gould.
Yes.
Gamache.
Yes.
Higgins.
Yes.
Manning Martin.
Yes.
Welton.
Yes.
McGinn.
Yes.
Rozignol.
Yes.
Melville.
Yes.
Daigle.
Yes.
Motion carries 11-0.
Thank you. Councilor McGinn.
Thank you, Madam President. If we could ask Mr. Gingras to please comment on late communication 2. It's the RCN.
Similar to the last request, this is payment from RCN from July to September to fund the amounts to be paid to Peabody Access Television for $14,909.
Thank you, Madam President. Move to approve transfer requests, receipts reserve cable fund, quarter 3, 2025, account number 270-0000331017, in an amount of $14,909.67. To Cable Fund Expense, account number 270-0000530007, in an amount of $14,909.67. So moved.
You heard the motion. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote.
Councilors Turco,
Yes.
Peach.
Yes.
Gould.
Yes.
Gamache.
Yes.
Higgins.
Yes.
Manning Martin.
Yes.
Welton.
Yes.
McGinn.
Yes.
Rozignol.
Yes.
Melville.
Yes.
Daigle.
Yes.
Motion carries 11-0.
Thank you. Councilor McGinn.
Thank you, Madam President. If we could ask Mr. Gingras to please comment on late communication 1.
Yeah, this request is to transfer $101,000 from premium reserves for projects for paving services up at the Kennedy Fields in that school. We're responsible for the paving of a certain portion of that parking lot. And the total cost was $140,820. We had some leftover funds in the old capital bond for $39,000 for paving, and this added to that would fulfill the payment of that obligation.
Thank you, Mr. Gingras. Move to approve the transfer request, bond premium reserved for projects, account number 270-0000333015, in an amount of $101,740.64. To paving services, account number 300-00000058882 to 2026, in an amount of $101,740.64. So moved.
On the motion, Councilor Turco.
Thank you, Madam President. Mayor, I just had to ask you about this one. I haven't been to the Kennedy since, my kids have been out of school, so I really don't know. How bad was this parking lot that we chose to pave a parking lot prior to, a street? That's the quandary I had. There's about 600 bad streets, and, how do we justify a parking lot over a street?
So the Covenant Christian Academy is the owner of the building. We share the parking lot, and we own the fields themselves. They were doing the paving of the property. We have about, I think it's around 28% of the parking lot is ours. I think some soccer coaches, me and soccer coaches around, I would think it's by far it was the worst spot in the city, even worse than the Andover Street before we paved it.
It's worse than Central Street.
It's worse than Central Street, so. Yeah, Lowell Street's, it's rough, but that will be paved soon. But no, Councilor, not to make jest of it, because it did come at the expense of maybe other streets. But this particular, it wasn't paid out of Chapter 90 funds. It was paid out of a different account. But this area was in wretched condition, and it had to be done. And to do it at the time where Covenant Christian Academy was actually doing it, we were able to add on and get this piece done.
Thank you, Mayor. And the last question through you, Madam President, Mr. Gingrich. The $39,000, that expends the entire $2.3 million bond from, I think, 2 or 3 years ago that we
Correct.
approved? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other counselors? If you were watching from home, you didn't see a couple of the counselors here nodding along in support of this. So that being said, any other discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Councilors Turco,
Yes.
Peach.
Yes.
Gould.
Yes.
Gamache.
Yes.
Higgins.
Yes.
Manning Martin.
Yes.
Welton.
Yes.
McGinn.
Yes.
Rozignol.
Yes.
Melville.
Yes.
Daigle.
Yes,
Motion carries 11-0.
thank you. Counsel McGinn.
Thank you, Madam President. This following vote is regarding approval of the tax classification. Move to adopt a residential factor of 0.854200 for fiscal year 2026, which is a 170% CIP factor. So moved.
You heard the motion. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Councilors Turco.
Yes.
Peach.
Yes.
Gould.
Yes.
Gamache.
Yes.
Higgins.
Yes.
Manning Martin.
No.
Welton.
Yes.
McGinn.
Yes.
Rozignol.
Yes.
Melville.
Yes.
Daigle.
Yes,
Motion carries 10-1.
thank you. Counsel McGinn.
Thank you, Madam President. Move to not grant a discount for open space. So moved.
You heard the motion. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Councilors Turco.
Yes.
Peach.
Yes.
Gould.
Yes.
Gamache.
Yes.
Higgins.
Yes.
Manning Martin.
Yes.
Welton.
Yes.
McGinn.
Yes.
Rozignol.
Yes.
Melville.
Yes.
Daigle.
Yes,
Motion carries 11-0.
thank you. Counsel McGinn.
Thank you, Madam President. Move to not adopt a residential exemption. So moved.
You heard the motion. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Councilors Turco.
Yes.
Peach.
Yes.
Gould.
Yes.
Gamache.
Yes.
Higgins.
Yes.
Manning Martin.
Yes.
Welton.
Yes.
McGinn.
Yes.
Rozignol.
Yes.
Melville.
Yes.
Daigle.
Yes,
Motion carries 11-0.
thank you. Counsel McGinn.
Thank you, Madam President. Move to not adopt a small commercial exemption. So moved.
You heard the motion. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Councilors Turco.
Yes.
Peach.
Yes.
Gould.
Yes.
Gamache.
Yes.
Higgins.
Yes.
Manning Martin.
Yes.
Welton.
Yes.
McGinn.
Yes.
Rozignol.
Yes.
Melville.
Yes.
Daigle.
Yes,
Motion carries 11-0.
thank you. Counsel McGinn.
Thank you, Madam President. Does the clerk have the classification allocation form? Do we have the form?
We no longer need to do the signatures.
we don't need the
The city clerk will do a affidavit of the votes.
Terrific. Modernization. Then, Madam President, with that, I move to adjourn.
So moved. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone from the finance team and the mayor and the counselors
Thank you,
and the
Council.
public. Thank you.